I'm Joshua Cade, and these are my dungeon sketches. With a notebook, a pen, and a little luck, we'll explore map theory and come up with some very creative fantasy worlds for Dungeons & Dragons. Episode 1, Treetop Goblin Town. Okay, for this first dungeon sketch, I want to do something special. Let's do a small treetop city. So, pen, I'm going to use it. Start off with pencil, obviously. And then we've got some markers for shading, in case we need to denote some areas. So, let's say there's a small village of goblins, because goblins are the best, and they all live up in the trees. So let's just kind of put some trees around. We're not going to worry about getting them perfectly spaced or anything right now. So maybe if your party was coming through the woods to a weird area, or maybe you're just looking for a little inspiration for a city, we can start with this. I guess I should back up. One thing I want to do with these dungeon sketches is just show some different map theory while making maps. You don't have to use this specific map in your games, in fact you probably won't want to, but by following along with making this little map in this community, hopefully we learn some lessons about building more approachable places in D&D and more interesting worlds. The more approachable a place is, the more memorable it'll be. So anyway, what do all cities have? First, they have a city square. Let's just say there is a square right in here. Let's say, actually what would be cool is if the square was kind of where all of these, let's say these trees are connected by bridges. Let's say that the square is actually just a big area in the middle that they all kind of hold in suspension. So if all of these are walkways to each of these trees, we can just kind of thicken those up a little bit. And then, yeah, here in the middle, we have a nice big wooden gathering spot for everyone in town. And so we're assuming that there's little wooden bridges going from tree to tree. Probably there would be some bridges crossing other bridges. Maybe they touch, maybe they're separated by about 15 feet. Something like that would be kind of fun for gameplay. Group is chasing a bad guy around the city, gets lost him, and then you see him on the road beneath. Like an action movie, they jump down. Or climb up. Who knows? So I'm just going to, at this point, make some random connections here. Just to kind of get us started. Let's see, this one connects down. And so we kind of get to see start of a pattern coming. And so near the town square is what? Oh, that's going to be the bar, obviously. I vote we put the bar right here. So let's just say that's a tree trunk. We can shade all of these. Well, no, I've got markers for that. Let's say the bar kind of exists around it. Probably has some steps going up the outside of it so that you can get to a second floor. And yeah, just a little free-floating treehouse building. Mix those. And let's see, we got the city square, we got the pub, probably have like a courthouse and maybe a series of houses. So I think that's pretty indicative of just how a building would work. Let's over here do a quick side sketch so we understand what it's looking like. Let's say that's the tree, some branches, whatever. And then that building, let's see, this starts on a platform with some support going down to the tree. Since these are goblins, let's make it a little haphazard because they're not the greatest builders. And we'll say just kind of has like a little wall piled up here. And that's where the stairs are. They come down, they come over and around the back. Just kind of shade that out. And essentially what I'm doing now is just getting a little bit of a side view so that you can show players and they kind of understand what's going on. And then we'll just make some more platforms coming out of here. And maybe that's where people sit and have drinks and stuff like that. Just a real kind of thrown together treehouse, because that's what goblins do. Yeah, we'll just label that Goblin treehouse. Cool. But what would their homes look like? Probably, since goblins don't live very long, we'll say that their homes are multi-generational, so they've got a lot of people in one. So let's just take this guy, because it's a little out in the middle of nowhere. And let's just say that it's got multiple levels of home built on it. It's just kind of grown and grown and grown and grown. And maybe there's even a nearby tree that it's come over to. We've got a little connection there. Maybe two, because it's multi-story. Yeah, let's throw some stairs in there. And again, we're not trying to be super exact with any of this, just kind of give the illusion of what this township or little community would be like, so your players kind of understand the gist of it, and you understand the gist of it, you as the DM that is, so that in game you can kind of riff on each other and improv together like the actual city. I've always found that planning every detail in advance kind of screws you over in the end, only because like you might miss out on some really fun opportunity, like brainstorming ideas between you and your players. So yeah. Anyway, so this is just a representative of like what might actually exist in whatever D&D world you have. So we've got the bar, the family's house obviously leads straight to it. Maybe that's the pub owner. Maybe that's who that is, and that's they own the bar in town, which is cool, which is why they're kind of connected directly. And they can go around, get to the town square pretty easily. And yeah, we'll just say that there's like little neighborhoods of similar, probably connect over here, of kind of similar buildings, kind of haphazard, thrown together or whatnot. And then another neighborhood maybe splits off over here. They don't want to be quiet in town. You know, maybe they're just kind of off on their own. Different goblin families. And how these are all protected, they're just high up in the trees, obviously. And maybe they do, let's think about that actually. That's a fun thing to move on to, is they've got these buildings up here. Obviously they're built in the air for protection, but maybe what are some other logical steps that they could do? Maybe they, on the buttressing down here, maybe they kind of hang like big nets full of leaves, so it looks like whenever you look up you don't see any of the buildings and stuff. Maybe that's just kind of one thing they do even under the bridges, is just hang branches with like leaves on them, and they change them through the year so that they stay hidden. You know, like for autumn and stuff, when our leaves turn red, they change them out to red leaves. Goblins aren't stupid, they're just not smart. So now that we've got some of this settled, I'm gonna go ahead and ink. And this is not to make it, we're not going for beautiful here. We're definitely not going for a fully rendered cartographer map. This is just to help plan a D&D session. I always ink mine because I'm worried that I will spill water or beer on them and then they get lost. So anyway, let's see. So yeah, one thing to think about whenever you're making a city is multiple roads and stuff, because cities are made for hyperconnectivity, and there's not, it's always a bad idea in a city whenever you have like just one road that connects two parts of town. So don't be afraid to connect multiple ways here. And if there is a choke point, then make sure it's intentional and that you kind of have a plan for it. Like maybe the choke point was made as a defense for the city, and it's like here in Austin, getting across I-35 is sometimes a pain in the ass because like it's just very busy. So maybe the choke point in the city that you've designed is intentional to slow down traffic during busy times, or to keep a rushing army from invading too quickly. So yeah, and it's also more fun for players whenever they have multiple ways of getting where they need to go, assuming that they see those ways and can understand them pretty well. That's just to give them a little more opportunity to plan their attack or plan their movement, because I don't know, planning is almost as is pretty much as fun as combat, for me at least, in D&D. Coming up with a plan beforehand. Some of my favorite games that I've played in or DM'd were like ambushes. One game in particular, I was DMing with some friends of mine, and they were in a mountain pass, and they were going to ambush some goblin traders that they knew were coming through. And so they spent like a whole session or two planning the ambush, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was pretty great. Anyway, so yeah, whenever you're building a city, don't forget to figure out one or two kind of important elements of the city. Like, for instance, this city, it's a goblin town up in the trees, so for protection, that's one. And that's like one thing, and two is it's connected by wooden bridges and has this like floating town square. I think those are really interesting and memorable aspects of the city that we were already created. People remember this city pretty well, and they're like, oh yeah, the goblin city in the trees, cool, got it. They kind of understand what's going on, so then whenever they're playing in it, they can say, oh, to get away, I jump off this bridge to the one below. And even if you hadn't planned a bridge there, they understand enough about how the city is made, kind of like the founding principles of this city area. And so then you can just say, sure, yeah, you jump, you jump down, you land on the bridge, and now they've manifested this bridge just because everyone understood kind of what was going on around. And it wasn't overplanned. It's a little bit of improv, which is always fun. And then once players really understand what the city is like, then that allows you to save time on like describing it over and over and over. Like they get it. It's up in the trees. You describe one building in detail, show them like a quick side drawing or sketch like this to really explain it, and then they're set. You just kind of tell them, cool, all the buildings have these same basic elements, and so no one's confused. You're not fielding a bunch of questions like, oh, well, are there windows in this one? Is this one made of stone? Like, no, they're all just wooden, crappy buildings up in a tree with limbs and branches hanging underneath. But yeah, I mean, that's just a really quick Goblin Tree City. So to recap on some of the elements, let me get out a marker here. We have, first and foremost, high up in the tree. Ooh, that's too dark of a marker. First and foremost, we have up in the tree for protection, we have some leaves hanging down underneath as camouflage, which I think is a really cool idea. I'm gonna have to use that in one of my games. We have the floating town square, which the players, maybe they're on trial, maybe instead of like cutting people's head off, they get thrown over the side to their death or something like that. We have the all-important pub near the town square, because that's an important connection right there. We have neighborhoods kind of off to the side. If the players know any goblin families, they can just go straight to their homes, or maybe this is kind of these are the areas that goblins retreat to if the players start attacking in the forest. Like, maybe they all just retreat to the homes, and then the city square is left barren, and maybe that's kind of a creepy, weird thing that for players to investigate whenever they find this place. Yeah, I don't know. Very simple little, let's call this a goblin town. Obviously, I'm gonna put tree top. And yeah, that's let's do this real architectural. Yeah, this is the first of a series that I hope to do a lot of, because I'm kind of enjoying it, bringing together some of my architecture background as well as my love for map making and Dungeons and Dragons. My goal of this, again, is to not draw fully rendered maps for you guys to use, but just to use sketching maps as a medium for talking about some map making theory and just kind of general world building techniques. None of these are groundbreaking or anything. Like, these are all things that I have to constantly remind myself of, and whenever I'm making maps, and yeah, and all of that, I guess, is where I was rambling to. But this is all really fun for me. I hope you enjoy it, and tune in next week whenever we do something else. Again, my name is Joshua Cade, and I am the designer and tape goblin behind Dungeon Tape. It is a tool for making maps. They are not pre-made maps. I guess that's kind of my shtick, is I don't do anything for you, but I want to help you do things better. Therefore, I try to provide map making tips as well as easy tools, kind of like Dungeon Tape right here. Easy tools to help you make your custom maps and quicker and better than you would just with markers or 3D terrain. So, sorry, I'm a little distracted with this lettering because I think it's going to look really good. Treetop. Goblin Town, Treetop. And that concludes our first segment of Dungeon Sketches by Dungeon Tape. I'll put that up here. Dungeon Tape. There we have it. Thank you for joining me.